Hi everyone, welcome back to another lightsaber video. This is the Roman Props MK1 from his latest run in 2025, which I have converted and set up to look like the Tunisia prop, which is the one that we see with on Alec Guinness's belt in the scenes on Tatooine in Star Wars A New Hope. This has some slight differences to the well-known Chronicles Obi-Wan A New Hope, which is believed to be just kind of a later version of the same prop. It's very unlikely that Alec Guinness was given two different belt hangers, one for Tunisia and one for the Death Star. But we do know that the Death Star saber is what ultimately became, or the one that we ultimately see in the Chronicles book, which is this one. So this is a Dave P. Obi-Wan A New Hope, which is set up in the well-known Chronicles version. And this is a Roman Props MK1 static, which is set up as the Tunisia. So I think it's the same hilt. It's just slight differences over time that are modified, which I'll go over. So I'll focus on this one first, on this build, and then I'll just compare the two side by side and go over the differences. To start with, Roman introduced this new, I'm just going to zoom into it a little bit. If you look here on the surface of the rings here and the grenade, you can see some sort of horizontal tool marks. This is a new feature that Roman has introduced as of 2025. I think it looks fantastic. It looks more authentic. It looks more like the vintage Hales grenade, the number 3 MK1. It definitely has some of those like tool marks there. So this is a new feature that he's introduced on his grenade, which I really liked. And that was really one of the main reasons why I wanted to grab a new one. It's also because I just didn't have the Roman Props MK1. I used to have one, I sold it, and I kind of always regretted it because I love the Roman Props MK1 and I just wanted to have it back. So as soon as he announced that he's making or redesigning the grenade with these, I just thought, yeah, I'm just going to go for it. The rest is much the same. He hasn't really redesigned or changed anything else. Parts of this are not from Roman, they are vintage. So Roman Props balance pipe, Roman Props grenade and neck. The clamp is a vintage. This is a vintage early Fulmer. You can see it's got some rust there, but it's not too bad. It's got the typical Fulmer lever, which is a little bit slimmer, shinier than the ink lever, and it's got that smaller, rounded, usually rusty rivet, or not rusty, rather the plating kind of comes off these more often than not. And this is accurate for the real prop. The bubble strip, I also went with a vintage. This is cut from an Exactra 19 calculator. I sort of did the chamfering so it can kind of fit in and look accurate. The pair of washers here, these are both vintage as well. They're aircraft washers, but the Marconi transistors are obviously Roman Props, the ones that came with the saber. I have not been able to find vintage Marconi Elliott transistors yet. They are extremely rare and usually very expensive. So for now, these replica transistors will have to do. But everything else on this clamp section, so the washers, the bubble strip, and the clamp itself, are vintage. As I said, the top portion there is all replica, the grenade and the balance pipe. The booster is also the Roman Props MK1. vintage A&M boosters are extremely rare and very, very, very expensive. So I'm not even gonna bother. I don't think it's not within my means or my budget, as nice as it would be, but it's just not something feasible for me personally. But I do love the Roman booster. I do prefer it to the Dave P booster, which looks nice, and it's really nicely weathered and damaged by Dave. It's just I'm not sure about how accurate it is. It seems to be just slightly different. Kind of the fins almost seem a little taller, a little bit more kind of pointy, if that makes sense. Whereas these have a nice rounded look. Just more pleasing to look at. I don't know which one is more accurate. I have a feeling it's that one, but it's more of kind of a personal preference. The hand wheel or the pommel section is a vintage. I was lucky enough to grab a pair of these. These are obviously armatured shanks, Starlight sink knobs or hand wheels from the UK. I used the hot one for this one and the cold one for the Dave P Chronicles one. Both of these arrived to me in fantastic condition. And Dave was very, very kind, because this pommel section is made of plastic. It's chrome plastic, so it is very easy to shatter. So I would not dare do the drilling for the D-rings in case I get it wrong or mess up or break it or crack something, or if I get the hole wrong. So I talked to Dave, and he was really, really generous. And I said, look, can I send you these? I'm terrified of doing it myself. You have much more experience than I do. And very nicely, he accommodated my request. I sent him both hand wheels with my D-rings, which are both vintage as well. And he drilled that for me and installed the D-rings, and it looks perfect. So this Chronicles now also has a vintage sink knob and a vintage D-ring, as well as the vintage Fulmer clamp, the vintage wobble strip, and one vintage washer. And then everything else, of course, is replica, just like this new Roman props. So back to this one. So once again, Roman props, MK1 2025, with the new tool marks on the grenade, vintage clamp, bubble strip, washers, Roman transistors, Roman booster, vintage armature shanks sink knob with a vintage accurate D-ring. And that is the build itself. And then as far as like setting it up for the Tunisia, we have to flip the grenade backwards. So on the Chronicles, we would see it like you're kind of used to it. The top ring is wider and it's got that kind of incline. But then what happens is you just unscrew this and you flip it backwards so that this portion is in the clamp. And then that's how you get that flat, sort of narrower, straight top ring. And that is accurate for the Tunisia prop. There's a pair of washers on this one, as opposed to just one washer on the other one. And the D-ring is oriented slightly differently to the other one, but that's it. But then the pommel cubes as well, they're also flipped. If you look here from the side profile, this is like almost like a 45-degree angle. This is a little bit steeper. It's almost like a 30-degree angle. And that one points towards a saber, that one points towards a pommel. It's the exact opposite of the Chronicles, where the 30-degree points to the pommel and the 45-degree points to the saber. So those are really the only main differences between Chronicles and Tunisia. Let's just zoom out so we can look at the same thing. The grenade orientation is flipped, and the hand wheel is also flipped upside down, the pommel cubes. And then the rest of the differences are more in terms of weathering and damage. This one seems to have much more sort of damage at the base of the balance pipe. a lot of damage and modification around the clamp section, this chrome tape, the missing washer, the presence of these mysterious cotter pins, and the brass screws, a pair of them. I believe all of these to be post-production additions on the clamp. It might have just fallen apart or got damaged. Probably a washer was lost, and they kind of put this together just to hold it together to the internals. But this is how it looks in the two photos in the Chronicles book, which is sort of, we have one from that angle, we have one from that angle in black and white. But these were definitely not there in the Tunisia scenes. It was a much cleaner clamp section. So those are the differences. So I just set it up that way, basically. I just waited for all the vintage parts to arrive. Yeah, set them up. Dave did the drilling, installed the D-ring, put it together. Very, very, very easy. And then I just did some weathering, which was a lot of fun. I tried to keep it subtle, not go too crazy with paints and things like that, but just mostly used weathering powders, really, just to give it those kind of sandy tones, which is reminiscent to, unfortunately, there aren't any good reference photos of the Tunisia prop, but we can see it really on stills from the movie, hung on Alec Guinness's belt. And we can see that there's some sort of discoloration here at the base of the emitter ring. So I tried to do that with sort of weathering paints. I don't know how much the camera is picking up, but there's some sort of yellowish there and there. I kind of use different shades of rust and sand and things like that just to make it look more gritty. Same again in between the grenade ring section. This was obviously a clean kind of black when it arrived from Roman. I just added this kind of rusty effect in between. Nothing here on the clamp. Obviously this already had the rust, which I think actually looks pretty nice. I like it. I like that it's not completely clean. And again, a little bit of kind of a sand deposit effect or rust, grime, whatever you want to call it, in between the fins of the booster. I hope you're able to see some of this. It is subtle. It is easier for me to kind of see it than on camera, unfortunately. I just didn't want to sort of go too heavily on it. This is my second attempt on the Tunisia. I kind of looked back at my previous one. I didn't really like it. I kind of went too heavy with paint, and it just looked too artificial. So I kind of wanted to keep this a little bit more subtle, so you can kind of see it depending on the angle and the lighting. So I'm pretty pleased with it overall. And that's basically it. There's not really a lot to say about the Tunisia prop. It's probably just an earlier version of the saber that went on to be used on the Death Star scenes. But it seems that between, I don't know, at some point during production, they had flipped the grenade, flipped the pommel. Maybe they had to like dismantle it to be shipped from Tunisia back to the UK. I mean, who knows? But then it went on to become, you know, this is what we finally see in the Chronicles book, with all the damage on the clamp and the missing washer, etc. So it's interesting. It's kind of it's kind of nice to have both versions. Like this is almost like an early production version. This is like a late post-production version of the same saber. The dream would obviously be to have an all vintage, all real parts Obi-Wan Kenobi saber one day, but the prices of these parts is astronomical. The balance pipe, the grenades, and especially the booster. So it's not something that I'm going to be actively pursuing at this present time, but I try to kind of fill in the gaps with vintage parts that are affordable to me. So both clamps, bubble strips, washers, D-rings, and sink knobs. And that is enough for me at the present time. So yeah, that's it for the Tunisia prop, Obi-Wan Kenobi, MK1 Roman Props 2025 version. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Feel free to ask any questions or leave any comments that you like to discuss this, or tell me what you prefer, which Obi-Wan is your favorite, whether it's one of these two or one of the prequel-like ones. Yeah, just feel free to have a chat, have a discussion. But yeah, thank you very much for your support on this channel. Thanks for all the great feedback I always get from you guys. I really, really appreciate them. And I look forward to doing another video soon. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next one.